Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be having a look at how the Bitcoin price chart has been tracking along towards our targets of about 109,000. After we briefly touch on Bitcoin, we're going to move over to the altcoin market and have a look at some of the major caps like Ethereum, XRP, Dogecoin, and ADA. And then to wrap the video up, we're going to be having a look at some other promising coins that are showing signs of repeating how they performed back in 2021. And then we're going to tie this into what we see playing out here on the DXY going into that final move that we've been discussing on the channel. So important video today. Let's jump into it. So firstly, starting with Bitcoin, what we can see is that Bitcoin ended up bouncing like we discussed it would on Wednesday's video, and then we have seen so far a little bit of a rejection back to where Bitcoin was likely to find support at that previous all-time high, set back at about 112,000, which was the top of Bitcoin's ABC correction. However, like discussed in Wednesday's video, I don't believe that this support level is going to hold, as last time this ended up holding back down when Bitcoin sold off to 112,000 and then bounced. The move down that we've seen so far simply wasn't good enough for Bitcoin, and that I don't think this bounce is going to be valid. And what I'll be most likely looking for is actually Bitcoin to come down to this $109,000 level where it should find support. Another reason that we haven't seen a bounce yet is that what we're also looking for in this final capitulation sell-off here for Bitcoin, where it can actually backtest the all-time high set back in January here, is a news event to come with it. And so far we haven't really seen any news events come with the sell-off that we've seen. All that we've seen is price just slowly grind to the downside, no big flush, no liquidation candles, and no negative news events to come along with that. So we're hoping over the course of the next 2 to 3 days we will see some kind of news event that ends up giving us that bottom, and then like discussed on Wednesday, we are still waiting for that V bottom where price can shoot out quite aggressively and then confirm that that $109,000 level was our bottom. Similar to the way things played out down here, where eventually once we did see price grind down, we've seen that news event come that flushed the market, the V bottom, and then we can pretty much confirm from that point onwards that that was the bottom of this ABC correction that we discussed on the channel for months. However, moving into the altcoin market here, what we can see is that as Bitcoin is back and setting new lows, a lot of altcoins like Ethereum, for example, actually are outperforming Bitcoin, haven't even come close to setting new lows, and are actually acting quite strong at a time like this. And even though we've seen negative price action for Bitcoin, what you would have expected in a time like this, like we've seen in the past, is the Bitcoin dominance to actually shoot up. But if we have a look here, the Bitcoin dominance has been stalled out and is actually back down at the lows and looks like it wants to break down. All the while Bitcoin is actually in a downtrend. However, the altcoins are holding up better against Bitcoin. So what we are starting to see is a bit of a rotation of capital out of Bitcoin into these altcoins like Ethereum, Dogecoin, and ADA, or some of the stronger coins like Binance Coin, which has gone on to actually set a new all-time high in the last 24 hours, or something like Chainlink, which continues to march up higher during this whole sell-off that we've seen so far for Bitcoin. Chainlink has ignored that and continued to just march higher. So it's quite clear that there is currently a rotation of capital happening in the market right now, where you can see that a lot of the altcoins are actually holding up or even outperforming Bitcoin during the sell-off that we've seen over the course of the last week. So if we tie this back into what we're seeing play out here on Ethereum as far as price action goes and entry levels, it wouldn't surprise me if Ethereum ends up just double bottoming here, coming back to about 4,100, where it will most likely find a bottom if we do see Bitcoin actually flush to the downside and push as low as 109,000. As far as XRP, I do think that XRP will push a little bit lower, potentially not reach as low as that 265 like we discussed on Wednesday. It might fall short of that and end up just double bottoming back here to where it landed on the 3rd of August. However, for Dogecoin, we are still looking for these lows to get taken out and Doge to sell off to about 20 cents. And for ADA in that most previous sell-off, you can see that price just missed our targets here. However, I think when we do see Bitcoin go down and flush for that low with a negative news event to push it, we will see ADA shoot down below these 83 cents levels, where we will be able to scale into our positions. Now, one thing I wanted to show you guys is the way that some of the coins actually played out in 2021, and that what we're seeing so far in this cycle is actually quite normal. And if we have a look at FET here, what we can see is that from October into November and December in late last year, we actually seen FET rally about 1,600%, which was then followed by a 90% correction. So far, we're sitting about 80% down from the highs set back in March of this year. And as bearish as all of this looks, if we go back to 2021 and we have a look at how FET's price action actually played out, it was quite similar. What we've seen FET do back in 2021 from the lows was a rally of about 1,500%, which was then followed by a sell-off of about 82% to the lows. And what we can see here, indicated by this purple box that I've drawn, is that we ended up finding support at the height of the accumulation range during the bear market, which was also this support region here, and that ended up giving us the lows back here in 2021 before FET went on from these lows and rallied another 600 130%, which ended up finishing it off. Now, if we have a look at how things are playing out today, we know we've already seen the 1600, 1500% rally. We know we've already seen the 80% correction. But what came next back in 2021 was another 500 or 600% move up from these lows, where FET ended up going and sweeping these highs that you can see that it's set back in the first move in its run. And what we can see so far, that when we've had this 80% correction, we have found support at the peak of the bear market accumulation range, which then ended up being this same supportive structure before FET ended up moving up and exploding, exactly the same as how things played out back here in 2021. And if things were to keep playing out the same here, what we would eventually see is these highs get taken, and we would be looking for a 500 to 600% move, which from current price today, if we do see a 500 to 600% move, we should definitely see the heights get taken out on something like FET if it was to perform the same way it did back in 2021. And the reason I'm showing you guys all this isn't to say that you should go out and buy FET because it's going to rally 600% like it did back in 2021. It's to say that everything we've seen so far in this market cycle is pointing to the fact that we are actually at the bottom of an accumulation range that ends up leading into an explosive final parabolic phase, which again lines up with what we see playing out here on ADA, because if we look back to 2021, we are seeing similarities between the structure that played out back here and what's actually playing out today on ADA's chart, where we have gone into this violent back test and we are looking for the price to move up and explode, which is similar to how we see price action playing out here on Dogecoin, as I do believe from October and November of last year, the accumulation range that ended up playing out before Dogecoin exploded about 368% is playing out right now, just on a much grander scale. And since this peak, we have seen Dogecoin sell off about 70%, just like we seen back on FET back in 2021, before it ended up going on for that final parabolic move. And if we even have a look at XRP, you guys know that my price targets are a full extension from this mid-cycle correction that we've been in on XRP, which does get us to about that $8, $9, $10 level. So if we continue to perform like FET did back in 2021, which it is performing exactly like that now in 2025, then what we should see next is a lot of these coins actually find a bottom and then start to show signs that they're ready to explode to the upside like we've seen them perform in the past. And the three things that we've discussed on the channel that we are looking to see is the US dollar, the DXY here, actually move to this $100 level and then break down like it did back in 2021, which we are now seeing signs of that happen. We've also discussed that we want to see the Dow Jones break out into a new all-time high, and that it's most likely to just teeter around at these levels before then breaking to the upside like it's also done in the past, which we are starting to see now, as the Dow has now shot up about 4% during August, making it back to that previous all-time high. And then the final indicator that we want to see is the Bitcoin dominance actually breaking down from this 62% level, and we've also seen that play out at the start of this month, which for people new to the channel, this is exactly what Bitcoin did back in 2021 before it went in for that final breakdown of the Bitcoin dominance, which gave us the alt season. So we are seeing all three indicators that we want to see go off right now. It is just a matter of time before we can eventually get the altcoin market to break to the upside, and I think we will see that play out. It's just a matter of waiting for our three other indicators to show signs that they are going to perform like they did back in 2021, which is the dollar breaking down from that $100 level, the Dow Jones breaking out into a new all-time high, and the Bitcoin dominance continuing to break down. So while we wait for Bitcoin to come in and back test this $109,000 level, I'll be out accumulating a lot of these coins that I've been watching for a while now, as I do think a lot of them are back at really interesting levels where it's quite likely we see them break to the upside here in the coming weeks and months. So guys, if you enjoyed this video, feel free to leave a like down below. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe, and if you have any questions, feel free to drop them down below in the comment section. And I'll see you guys in the next video, where hopefully Bitcoin has hit that $109,000 level and bounced. Have a good weekend.